Imagine if they made mortal engines into a game. Well, you don't need to imagine because it's here and it's called Wanderburg. The developers ran a week-long playtest in December, so this is my experience playing it and hopefully a reference point in the future for when development is complete and we have a fully fleshed out game. Full disclosure, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing when I first loaded into the game. There was a map selector you could drive around with different biomes on it, but for the playtest only Grasslands 1 was unlocked, so that's what I played. I then had the opportunity to build my moving city. Everything was locked apart from the weapons, so that's what I focused on. You could have side cannons, a front ram, a mortar and a mine layer. I went with the cannons because they seemed the simplest, and after a bit of lag, I was off. From what I could tell, the main gameplay loop was simple. You need to collect coins. You can collect coins from sucking up objects around the map like fields and trees, or by taking out enemies and other mechs. And the more coins you collect, the more upgrades you unlock. Upgrades have a rarity system, which I didn't figure out until way too late, and they focus on either upgrading the passive systems of your moving town, like health regen, or the raw stats of your weapons, and then sometimes their abilities. It was going pretty well. I was sucking up some poor farmers, using the cannon ability to clear out any archers that came my way, and just sucking up lots of coins. I love how lumbering these mechs feel. The devs definitely put some thought behind how weighty the controls should be. The fact that all these farm buildings get up and try to run when you get close is absolutely hilarious as well. Soon enough though, I was able to get a second module. The choice was between the 3 remaining weapons I could pick in the start. Due to the current lack of forward firepower, I chose the ram, which funnily enough was a good choice because it turned out to be the most OP weapon in the game. The ram pretty much does what it says on the tin, it rams people. It also came with a special ability which rapidly increased your speed temporarily so you could catch up and plow through enemies. Not too long after I unlocked this weapon, I was greeted with a new enemy troop type, cavalry. And not too long after that, I met my first boss. Honestly, it looked like something straight out of a Howl's Moving Castle. And then after that, I was met by another boss. I think this one was actually the boss, being as it had a crown on it, and the counter only displayed that 1 out of 4 bosses were active. It was definitely more aggressive than Howl's Moving Castle, and was armed by 2 massive drills and a mounted cannon. I saw this big old cart as well, which when destroyed gave me a bunch of coins and a module upgrade. An info window popped up showing how to get artifacts as well, and then I had the opportunity to pick one. It was a pretty obvious choice considering I had no magic weapons yet. I'd actually forgotten I could boost with shift, so I started using that again, and frankly the upgrades just began to rack up. Before long, I encountered a massive static fortress. It had a big chest on top, which I was 90% sure contained an artifact, but considering how much my health went down when I tried to attack, I just decided to do a runner, not to mention that the boss was tailing me. Fortunately, I spotted some health boxes that were just laying about, so I quickly swept them up and kept on moving. The cat and mouse game continued. I had like 6 mechs on my tail and masses of archers kept on spawning in, slowly wearing me down. So before long, I was back to critical health. I somehow managed to cling on through the onslaught and unlocked my 3rd module. This time I picked the mine layer purely because it looked more interesting than the mortar. Its special ability unleashes a cluster of mines at once from behind your mech. Funnily enough, this is kind of tied into the new artifact I then unlocked, which would reset all module cooldowns when my fuel level was at its max. Unfortunately, I didn't get any time to test it because I got a little bit distracted and then was immediately blown up. But I wouldn't let the game beat me just yet. Now that I had some gold earned, I could be a little bit more strategic with how I built my initial mech. Not that strategic, because the amount of gold I had was a pittance compared to what some of the upgrades needed, but I had enough to buy some merchants, and the ability to generate gold over time sounded cool, so I replaced the archers with them. I then decided that for any upgrades I got presented with, I'd prioritise levelling up the merchants to increase my gold production, alongside trying to farm the map as much as possible before the first boss spawned in, as at that point I'd need to start being more careful. I skipped the cannon because it was a bit lackluster and went for the ram straight away, and for my first module choice I decided I'd better go for the mortar. I loved how simply it just finished these archers off, and for some reason the game really didn't want me getting these sheep. I decided to get revenge though by absolutely violating the boss. I figured that because its only weapon was the front drum, we could just take it on from the back with my ram and we'd be perfectly fine. Not to mention it kept running over defences from the front, and all those coins would just circulate back to me. Honestly, when I was playing this live, I didn't realise there were multiple bosses, so this did jump scare me a little bit. Eventually I realised that there were 4 bosses in total, each one released after a certain amount of time, and defeating them all let you complete the level. After many bumps, we brought down the massive castle, which rewarded me with, you guessed it, a lot of coins. Later, after a lot of tricky driving, I was able to take down the first boss by leading it into my own mines. I cut it a bit close because I didn't realise these mines would actually do damage to me as well. When I defeated the boss, I was presented with a new upgrade screen, a vehicle upgrade. I chose speed because I felt like it'd be much easier to be faster than my enemies and do chip damage rather than face them head on. The onslaught continued. At this point I was just trying to scoop up as many coins as possible with the least damage received. The merchants were definitely helping. Eventually I unlocked my first legendary upgrade. It was quite cool that whatever you picked would fundamentally change how the mortar worked, but I didn't really like mines, so I was stuck with the left hand option. At a certain point I'd realised I'd gained infinite coins. I doubt the merchants were working that hard, and I stopped getting upgrades, so I can only assume that there was some kind of limit to the amount of coins you could earn, and thus upgrades you could unlock in a demo run. This kind of annoyed me because I was looking forward to becoming like mega OP, but I didn't have any time to sulk because the second boss had arrived. Jeez, this thing had some chompers, and the chompers wasn't even the things that killed me. I basically just ran into some straight cannon fire. Fortunately, my efforts were not in vain, and we were rewarded with 17,294 gold for our trouble. I was able to buy some decent equipment with this, and spawned in with a starting captain, artifact and module. The fire mage lobbed a circle of smaller AoE attacks every so often. Honestly, maybe I'm just biased, but nothing so far seems better than the ram. I saw a king trying to run away from me, so I sucked him up, but apart from that, nothing notable happened. I took down the next boss, and of course picked the right upgrade.
Speed! The speed!
It was all going so well until I got to this screen. I was offered a choice of 3 modules, but they were all locked for some weird reason. I had both the arms and cannons unlocked, so I don't know what's going on here. I tried clicking out of it, but the game wouldn't let me, so I had to resort to restarting, and my progress didn't even save. The game may have beaten me this time, but don't you worry, I'm not giving up just yet. Mortal Engines has been made into a game. The game is Wanderburg, and I've come up with a new strategy: health. If you're not familiar with Mortal Engines or Wanderburg, the premise is that you're a moving mech that can eat up and harvest smaller mechs and natural resources. You then roll that salvage into upgrading and building out your moving city. Although this game isn't exactly following the books and film, there is definitely some inspiration here. Anyway, the strat is that we focus on bringing health-based abilities onto the battlefield. We can use this vampire captain who will give us health every time we take out a certain amount of enemies, and employ a crew of carpenters and engineers who will work on maintaining our mech so we don't have to worry about it too much. I didn't pick the mallet and shield weapon for any particular reason, it was mainly just to try it out as I hadn't used it yet. It wasn't that great, although I did manage to sneak up and smack the horse carriage bank thing, which dropped a bunch of coins. I stuck with my previous strategy of upgrading the crew whenever I was offered, although instead of merchants, this time I was using the repair crew. I have just realised that this may be the first time some viewers are watching me play Wanderburg, so a brief explanation is in order. This game is still in development, the devs released a playtest in December, and this is my experience of playing through it. When you load in, you can customise your mech and then jump right into battle. Killing enemies and harvesting resources nets you coins, and the more coins you get, the more upgrades you get offered. There are also 4 bosses that you need to defeat, and they'll spawn in after a time limit. Killing a boss will get you a special upgrade of either speed or health, which is exactly what happened because after a bit of smashing, I'd taken my first one down. I chose armor this time because the only weapon I had required me to get up close and personal with any mechs. And when I got the choice of my next module, I picked the ram so I could use my violation strat to take down the big boy. And holy moly, what was that? Look at my health bruh. They've somehow got nukes in the medieval age. So that veered me off task a bit, not to mention these bloody rams kept spawning in, probably the most annoying thing I've encountered so far. I also learnt to dodge the nuclear strikes, so I was able to take down the weird missile silo. And because of all these distractions, I wasn't even able to take down Big Boy before the second boss spawned in. It took a hell of a lot of dodging, but we were eventually able to take him down and reap the rewards. This got me strong enough to take on the boss, so that's exactly what I did. It had no other defense apart from these big old jaws, so I got that second upgrade easy peasy. I chose armor again, so fingers crossed it doesn't come back to bite me. A lot more unique enemies started cropping up. I won't explain them all because it's pretty obvious what they do by looking at them, but I thought it was cool because I hadn't reached this far before. I was close to blowing up a few times, but I managed to get a legendary upgrade, and before long the third boss had spawned in. I quickly ran away because it seemed quite powerful and spent my time trying to get a lot of upgrades and recuperate my health. I genuinely don't understand how I killed it. I literally just bumped into it and then it imploded, so I'm not complaining. I guess it's because I'd been upgrading my battering ram to such a high level maybe, I'm not sure. I decided to go for speed this time so I wouldn't become a snail, and I was presented by the best choice yet. Should I have legendary upgrade effects B, or maybe I should go for legendary upgrades effects A? What would you pick? After the chassis upgrade, I'd gotten so big that I could now suck up any attacking mechs, and soon after, I'd reached max level and could collect no more coins or upgrade further. Fortunately, I was 30 seconds away from the final boss spawning, and before long, I was greeted with this monstrosity. They really put the Eye of Sauron in the game. This boss would shoot out fire tornadoes for some reason, which although highly damaging, were pretty easy to dodge with my boosts. So I'd start attacking him, wait for the tornado to spawn, run away, wait for it to dissipate, and then start attacking again. And yeah, I was only able to go and do it, so that's that. That's the story of how I conquered Wanderburg. Thanks for watching.